Okay, I'm live on Facebook. We're going to do a tropical sidereal zodiac presentation and Q&A. What I'm going to do first is read a definition from Sūrya Siddhānta about the zodiac. So here we go. Here's a definition of the zodiac from Sūrya Siddhānta. Sūrya Siddhānta from the 14th chapter. And the 7th text. Right? And this text alone is enough to end the debate about whether the zodiac is tropical, sidereal, or what. So it says, bhacakra-nābhau viṣuvad, dvitiyam samasūtragam, ayana dvitayan caiva, catasraḥ prathitāstutāḥ. Bhacakra means the zodiac, the circle of the lights, the circle of the heavens, the place where the planets move. The bhacakra-nābhau, the core of the bhacakra, the core of the zodiac is a sūtra, samasūtragam. A sutra is a thread. There's a thread holding together the zodiac, which is drawn between viṣuvad, dvitiyam, means the two equinoxes. Dvitiyam, viṣuvad, dvitiyam means the two equinoxes. So the thread, which is establishing the Veda, the zodiac, is tied between the two equinoxes. And then ayana dvitayan caiva. And also ayana means the solstices. And also from the two solstices. Catasraḥ, these four, prathitāstutāḥ, are super, super important, always spoken about, cannot be forgotten. These are the core of what holds the zodiac together. The equinoxes and the solstices. Now, you may be not really knowing how relevant this is. Because what is the bhacakra? What is the zodiac? The zodiac, whether it's sidereal or tropical, everybody agrees that the zodiac is a division of space into 12 equal units. The only question, the only difference between sidereal and tropical is, where do these divisions start? If I say you got a pizza pie with 12 slices, then the only difference between your pizza pie and my pizza pie is yours start your first slice like this and I start my first slice like that. But from there we make equal slices. So the difference between sidereal zodiac and tropical zodiac is just where is the beginning point. Now the word sidereal means, it's Latin word, it means stars, stellar. So sidereal zodiac means the starting point is based on a star. Which is very confusing because there is no star over there at Aries 0. There's no star. So you have to find some other way of calculating it. The most popular way of defining a sidereal zodiac is to say there's another star exactly across from where the zodiac is supposed to start, Spica or Chitra. But there's other competing theories about exactly where it starts. But basically, it means that the zodiac starts from a star, if you say it's a sidereal zodiac. And then tropical is another Latin word. It means turning around and around. So it's talking about how the sun turns around and around as it goes around the equator. So it's talking about coming up to a solstice, turning, coming down to another solstice, turning, coming back up, and crossing the equators in between. Now you see how relevant that is? Bhacakra-nābhau viṣuvad, dvitiyam samasūtragam. This zodiac, the bhacakra, it's held together by the threads pinned between the equinoxes and the solstices. That means it is tropical. Then the next text says, atareṣu saṅkrānti, dvitiyam punaḥ. In between each one of those 4 key points, there are 2 other borders. And that's how you get 12. The next text says, bhānor makara saṅkrānteḥ ṣaṇmāsā uttarāyaṇam. When the sun goes into the region called makara, that means when it goes into the sign called Capricorn, then it is going to spend the next ṣaṇmāsā, 6 months, going up to the uttarāyaṇa, going up to the summer solstice, the northern solstice. Then it says, karkādestu tatavasya ṣaṇmāsā dakṣināyaṇam. Then when it gets to Karka, when it gets to the Cancer zodiac, that's when it has reached the northern solstice, then it enters into Cancer. This is the Sūrya Siddhānta. I didn't make it up. The Sūrya Siddhānta says when it gets to the northern solstice, it has entered Cancer, and it's going to spend the next 6 months moving towards the southern solstice. Me shadyo dvadashaite māsastar eva vatsara. These Mesha, etc., Aries, and so on, are the 12 divisions thus made. And they are 12 because they are masa. They are months. So, and then all 12 together are vatsara, or a year. So it's saying if you take the sun and it goes around a complete circle around the equator or a complete circle around the earth, it's going to go around one time in a year. And then there's 12 divisions because as it goes around one time in a year, the moon goes around 12 times. Each masa or moon makes another segment. So that's why you get 12 segments. So this is the definition from Sūrya Siddhānta, which is clearly tropical. And so that's my point, really. Is my whole point is that I don't mind if somebody wants to use a sidereal zodiac, it's fine. Who am I to say you shouldn't do that? But all I'm saying is that Vedic astrology defines it as being tropical. So let's see what kind of questions we got. We got a question here from Aditya Kaushik. If astrology is an observational astrology from Earth, will someone find these signs just looking at the sky? No, you cannot find the signs just looking at the sky. But you will measure the signs based on things you can observe. If you want me to read you from Bhāgavata Purāṇa, then it'll tell you how you can see the signs. You see the signs by measuring how far the sun has moved north and south of the equator. When the sun is over the equator, then that will be measurable by the days and nights being of equal lengths. That's what you'll see. And then as the sun moves up towards the northern solstice, if you're observing from the northern hemisphere, then the days will become longer and the nights will become shorter. And when it reaches the longest day, then you know the sun has entered into Cancer. So you're not looking at something. It's not something that you see, but you're measuring the path of the sun. You're seeing it through your math, through your calculation. That's how you tell the divisions of the zodiac. And let's see what other question there is. Another question from Aditya was, some say the Earth is now tilted 23 degrees on its axis since the Sūrya Siddhānta was written. No, this is nonsense. The Earth is tilted 23 degrees, period. The Earth is tilted 23 degrees, period. That is why the sun appears to move north and south of the equator. Let me try to explain this. See my hand? That's not tilted, right? So now let's tilt this 23 degrees like this. Now, let's see this nice, beautiful little fist. So now we're going to take the sun. Let's do heliocentric. And let's make the Earth go around the sun. When it's on that side, it looks like that. And then when it comes around here. Or if you want to be geocentric, just do it like this. So because it's tilted, when the sun is over here, it appears to be north. It's closer to the north. And when the sun is over here, it's closer to the south. So you're not tilted. You're standing up straight. So when you look at the sun, as the sun goes around the Earth, the way you see it is that it goes like this. And when it comes all the way up to the top, that's where Cancer starts at the northern solstice. And when it goes all the way down to the bottom, that's where Capricorn starts, at the southern solstice. And when it comes to the middle, that's where Mesha or Tula are. That's where Aries and Libra are. And it's always been that way. It may trepidate, it may spin, it may move a bit. And that's why it has a trepidation also, which is a wobble. But that's just that the northern pole is moving, but the degrees of the tilt is not changing. Now let's see my friend Sonia. She says, but the moon circles the earth 13 times a year. So why don't we have 13 divisions? No, my dear. It doesn't circle the earth 13 times a year. It circles 12 point something times a year. Neither are there 27 days in a moon's cycle. There's 27 point something days in a moon cycle. That's why there's between 27 and 28 nakshatras. And similarly, the moon goes around 12 point something times in one solar year. So that's basically 12 things. You have to abstract. You have to understand that we're doing symbolic. Astrology is symbolic. So we're looking at nature and we're deriving symbolism from nature. So it basically goes around 12 times. And then you put in extra time to keep the things in sync with reality. You put in extra time. Like you'll put in an extra month in some calendars. You'll put in a leap day. Or once in a while you throw in an extra week. There's different ways to do it to account for the fact that it's not exactly lined up. It's not exactly to 12. And occasionally there'll be 13 months in a year. So occasionally there'll be 13 full moons in a year. That's called the blue moon. And just like occasionally you'll have a day where you skip a nakshatra. Or occasionally you'll have a day where it stays the same nakshatra for 2 days. Occasionally, because they're not exactly the same. Occasionally you'll get 13 moons in a year. It's 27 point something days. Let's see. We got more questions coming in. So we're hearing from Jesus that he thinks the origin of astrology is in Mesopotamia. I can't really speak about Mesopotamia. It's not my specialty. But Mulapin, I speak about Mulapin on some of my articles on my blog. You have to understand that there's constellations and there's signs. Constellations are not signs. Please understand that if you read Parashara Shastra and look at the 3rd chapter. Of course, you have to be able to read Sanskrit because if you read the English translation, it's translated wrong. But if you look at the 4th, I think it's the 4th text in the 3rd chapter, it says, though the 3rd chapter starts out by saying, there are many lights in the sky. Some of them move. The ones that move are called graha because they have their own will. And the ones that don't move are called nakshatra. But graha are special nakshatra that move. And then it says, because of the way that they move, they make 27 divisions. And then it says, but there's another way of dividing it into 12. So please try to understand that Rashis are from the Rashmi of the sun. Rashmivat. The sun is Rashmivat. The sun has so many rays. And when the sun is out in the sky, you don't see any stars. When the moon is out at night, you can see the stars behind it. When the sun is out, you don't see stars. So the path of the sun is not measured against stars. The path of the moon is measured in reference to stars. So the nakshatras are stellar things. They're based on stars. The rashis are not stellar things. They're based on the sun's light. They're divisions of the rashi, the sun's light. Yeah. Here's another good question. I don't know, how's it going? This is so weird. I've never really done a YouTube live, Facebook live before, so I'm a little nervous. Do you have any thoughts on the difference between the description of the universe in Bhāgavatam and Sūrya Siddhānta? I may have thoughts about that, but today I want to stick with the Zodiac. But here's the Bhagavatam's description of the Zodiac. And see, this is not just from Sūrya Siddhānta. This also comes from the Bhāgavata. And it's not just in the Bhāgavata Purāṇa. It's in all the Puranas, many Puranas. And now some people will say, well, who cares about the Puranas? These are religious books. When we're doing astrology, we're not doing religion. Well, my friends, then you don't even understand what the Vedas are if you talk like that. The Vedas are not religious books. The Vedas are not Bibles and things like that, or outdated things. The Vedas are books of knowledge. And the Puranas have 10 subjects, one of which is sthiti, which means cosmology, the situation of the universe. And therefore, every Purana has large sections of astronomy. And so to discount Puranas as being religious books is ridiculous. The Puranas are the basis of the astronomical knowledge of India. So Bhāgavata Purāṇa, in the 5th skanda, 21st chapter, starting with the 3rd text, says, Yan madhyagato bhagavans tapatam pati, which means that amazing sun is at the center of everything. Tapana atapena trilokyam pratapatyava bhashayat yatma bhasha. That sun warms and illuminates the 3 realms by its own brilliance. Sa esha uddagayana dakshinayana viṣuvad samgyabhir māndya-śaighrya-samānābhir gatibhir. That sun, now here's where it gets really interesting. That sun moves to the northern solstice, southern solstice, and the equinoctial points. And in doing so, its movement is described as fixed, cardinal, and dual. This is so interesting. This is where the modes of fixed, cardinal, and dual come in. Arohana avarohana samana sthaneshu yatha savanam abhipadyamano. As it rises to the north, falls to the south, or stands in the middle, this enables us to comprehend time. That's how you can measure time. Makaradishu rashishvaho ratrani dhirga hrisava samanani vidhatte. In the zodiac signs Capricorn and so on, the days and nights become longer, shorter, and equal. Yada mesh tulayor vartate tadaho ratrani samani bhavanti. When the sun is in Aries and Libra, the days and nights are equal. Yada vrishabhadishu panchasu charashisu charati. When the sun is in the 5 signs starting from Taurus, tadahan yeva vardhante. Hrisati cha masi mas ye kaika ghataka ratrisu. The days grow longer than the nights, which grow shorter by month, and then there's the opposite. So you see, this is so it's saying that the sun is the center of stuff, and it's what the zodiac is based on. Now, the sun moves. How do you measure the movement of the sun in relation to the Earth's equator? It moves north, it moves south, it moves over the middle. Now, that's going to make the days and nights longer or shorter, depending on where you are, or equal. And then it also has these characteristics of being cardinal, fixed, or dual. Because when the sun comes over the equinox, when it comes over the equator, it becomes cardinal. And cardinal means it's going to move quickly in a new direction. And that's the nature of cardinal signs, is they look to new directions. Then as it moves into that second segment of that division, so for example, when it comes over the equinox and then it enters into Aries, it becomes cardinal and looks for a new ambition. It looks for the northern equinox, for the northern solstice, and it sets its sights on that faraway point and moves towards it quickly. Then when it gets to its second segment, which is Taurus, it becomes fixed. It starts to slow down, and it just becomes steady. It keeps on the same point. That's the nature of the fixed signs. And that'll be in every quadrant. And then as it gets to the third segment, which is Gemini, it begins to approach the northern solstice, then it becomes dual, where it becomes equal. It starts to say, well, I still have to keep moving this direction, but I'm also going to start to prepare to move in a new direction. So I need to do 2 things at once. And I need to look at all sides of the equation here. Then it's going to hit that next key point. which is the northern solstice, is going to hit it as it gets to the beginning of Cancer. And then Cancer becomes cardinal too. It sets a new ambition. It becomes ambitious. And then it follows that same pattern. And that's how you have these three modes in each sign. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, somebody wants to know why the Vedic astrologers use the sidereal zodiac, which is great. Good question. The reason is that most of Vedic astrology is sidereal. Because most of Vedic astrology is nakshatra based. And the nakshatras are sidereal. No matter where this is what confuses people. What confuses people is that nakshatras are not another amsha, like a navamsha, dashamsha, and then there's a nakshatra also. Nakshatras are not a section of signs. Nakshatras are stars. And rashis or signs are divisions of the sun's path. They're two different things. And that's why there's something called ayanamsha. Ayanamsha means how much has it moved? How much has what moved? How much has point A moved from point B? There's no concept of movement unless there's two objects. One has to move from the other. So unless there's two objects, a nakshatra wheel and a rashi wheel, then you can't have a movement between them. But it's a big fallacy to think, let's use this ayanamsha to calculate from point A to point B, and then let's put point A at point B. You calculate from point A to point B because you want to know the difference between this beginning point of the zodiac and the beginning point of the nakshatras. And that's what ayanamsha is meant for. But so most of the original Vedic astrology was on nakshatras. But for whatever reason, probably because of the influence of Hellenistic and Tajik and Yavana influence into astrology, which is not a foreign idea. I'm not Britisher telling you how Indian history developed. If you just look at the textbooks that were written in Sanskrit, they have names like Tajik Nilamani, Yavana Jatika, saying that this is the astrological system that comes from these other countries, the Tajikistan and the Yavana, which is Iona and Greece, and Tajik is Persia. So probably because of the influence of those astrological systems, the Vedic astrology, the Indian astrology, started to adopt more interpretation based on rashis, where previously it had been very, very much interpretation based on nakshatras. So because they were very, very used to doing everything sidereally, they said, hey, look, these rashis are just, here's what they are right now, here's how you calculate them. But then they didn't keep changing them. If you look to the old Vedic books like Rig Veda, those books say that Kritika, those books say that makara, the makara is in Satabhishak. That is Varuna's steed, and that's where the winter solstice was. It was in Satabhishak. The winter solstice, you know what I mean? The south solstice. Was that the south solstice? Yes, that's where Makara was. And at the time, the spring equinox, the northerly equinox, was not in Ashwini. It was in Kritika, and that's why they have in the Rig Veda they have Kritika listed first. But around the time when Persian and Greek astrology came into India, they started to say, look, just to simplify things, look up at the sky. This is the area where Aries is, because like the first question was, can you see them? So it'd be much easier if you could see them. So they looked up to the sky and they said, see, that area over there where those stars are, that's where Aries is right now. But the right now part was forgotten. Now let's see what else we got here. This is actually kind of hard to do because there's so many questions, it's hard to keep up. I guess I'm just going to see which questions catch my eye, right? This one caught my eye. Sylvia asked me what was my transition from sidereal to tropical like. I think that's an interesting question too, because it's getting a little tired of theory. that was a very earth-shattering thing to do. The only reason why, the first person who I encountered who brought up the idea was Ernst Willem. But I figured that he was nuts. I figured that he just kind of went off the deep end. Although it was obvious to me that he was very learned and he had actually studied much more than other people who were claiming to be teachers of astrology. But I thought, this guy must be crazy because nobody else does this. It's only him. Then I had a very traumatic event in my life, which I entirely failed to foresee or predict. So I became very, very open to re-examining my astrological theories. So I opened my mind to the idea of taking him seriously about this. And then when I was pointed to these statements from Shastra, like the ones I read you from Bhāgavata Purāṇa and Sūrya Siddhānta, then I became confident. Then I started to experiment with it and see if it would work. And it was amazing how much simpler it was. I didn't have to bend through hoops, go over backwards, use this amshas aspect onto the Rashi of this karaka, blah, 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 to get some interpretation. I could just use a planet and a sign in a house and get really good interpretations. So that's when I said, well, this is it. That was a mistake to be using the Sidereal Rashis. But then I had already been practicing astrology for a number of years, so it was a little bit of a shock to people when I said, oh, I'm switching to tropical. And it's difficult if you're like a professional astrologer and then you switch, so it screwed up my career for a couple of years because nobody really knew whether they liked me or not. But then over time, nowadays it's like it's becoming significant. More, it's not as crazy anymore. Now the knowledge is coming more out. There's more people who are embracing it, so it's not as difficult now to make the change. Another question is, do I think signs and nakshatras are two different systems, not related to each other? They're used for different things. They're two different systems. They are related to each other because it's the same space, but there's two different ways of measuring the same space. The nakshatras are measuring the space relative to the moon at night, and the rashis are measuring space relative to the sun during the day. But they're very good to use them together. I use them together. I look at the planets and the nakshatras, and I calculate that sidereally. And if I do my nakshatra dashas, I do that all sidereally. And I get fantastic interpretations from planets and nakshatras. And then I also do the planets and the rashis, which are calculated tropically. And then I have my rules for how I will blend interpretations. And people have done readings with me, the longer readings, they know those rules. So it's easy. You use them both. Here's a question from Parisa. Less technical, practical question for a beginner. Okay, let's say in the sidereal system one has Sun, Mercury, and Venus in Cancer with a Leo ascendant. According to tropical, the same person has the Sun in Cancer, Venus and Mercury in Leo with Virgo ascendant. So these are different interpretations. How do you explain this? It has to be one or the other, right? So how can a person be Virgo in one system and Leo in another system? Well, the first thing I want to say is that astrology is not a hard science, right? It's not a hard science. It's not like chemistry or astronomy. It's a soft science. It's like psychology. That type of science. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's many ways to get things done. There are people who can read your destiny and know your karma without even looking at your birth chart. There are people who just look at you and tell you what everything about you. And they can even tell you your rising sign, your nakshatras, where your planets are, just by looking at you. And you may not think that you may think that this is a fairy tale, but you know me, I'm a Capricorn ascendant with the moon in the 6th house, the sun in the 8th house. I don't accept bullshit and I don't accept fairy tales. But I've seen this stuff happen and I've heard about it firsthand, secondhand. And I've seen it firsthand also, some of these amazing people in India. So you don't have to calculate things accurately to get accurate interpretations. A lot of things that happen in an astrological reading are not because of astrology. They're because of psychology, they're because of mystical powers, they're because of connection, they're just because of the therapeutic effect of talking to somebody who's knowledgeable. A lot of good that comes from an astrological reading isn't just astrological. And there's so many ways to interpret the things. There's so many ways to interpret things that you can make anything match anything. But that's what I said about what I really noticed, the change between doing sidereal for a number of years and then switching to tropical. When I was doing sidereal zodiac signs, I really felt like I had to, sometimes something would be clear and stretch and match, but a lot of times I had to snake around, bend around, find some new theory or some new yoga, some new theory, some new stipulation that would make this situation work for the person. Whereas with the tropical signs, it was just, now I just have this basic set of rules for how to interpret a chart, and it works for everybody. Let's see what other questions we have. Yes, I am talking about Vedic techniques with tropical signs. And as I read in the beginning from Sūrya Siddhānta and the Bhāgavata Purāṇa, these are Vedic signs. Please don't think that Vedic astrology means sidereal astrology. If you say Hindu astrology means sidereal astrology, that's fine. Because Hindu is the tradition of India. Of course, Hindu is just a name that the British people invented. But let's just say Indian, which is also a name that the British invented. But let's say Bharatiya Jyotish, Indian astrology. That's fine. And that's legitimately sidereal. They can do it that way. But Vedic astrology has to be based on the definitions of things given in the Vedas. So Sūrya Siddhānta, Bhāgavata Purāṇa, Vishnu Purāṇa, they talk about the solstices and equinoxes being the anchor points defining the divisions of the zodiac. So you can't circumvent that and still call yourself Vedic. Now, this friend of mine, Balaram Suresh, he says the tropical is Northern Hemisphere specific, which is a complete misunderstanding and a lie. There's no reason for anybody to say that tropical is Northern Hemisphere specific. It's ridiculous. It's the tropical zodiac is defined by the sun's movement north and south of the equator. It doesn't matter if it's the summer solstice or the winter solstice. It's a northern solstice, a southern solstice, and 2 equinox points. And that's what defines the key points of the zodiac. There's nothing northern about that. Let's see what other questions we got. I don't know if I'm doing this good or not, but what points do you want me? Let me know. Tell me now. What points do you want to hear explained more clearly? Let me know if you want to hear something more clearly. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Okay, so yeah, just to remind, for all those who came on late, let me just read this to you now, okay? One more time. And I'll also give you time to think of your questions. Bhacakra-nābhau viṣuvad dvitiyam samasūtragam ayana dvitayan caiva catasraḥ prathitāstutāḥ. It's very, very, very important. Prathitāstutāḥ. These catasraḥ, these 4 points. Which points? Ayana dvitiya, the 2 solstices, and viṣuvad dvitiya, the 2 equinoxes. These 4 points are the sūtra that the zodiac goes on. Sūtragam, samasūtragam. It's the sutra holding together the bhacakra-nābhau. It's at the core of the bhacakra. So there it is. That means that it's tropical. But just to explain more, atareṣu saṅkrānti dvitiyam punaḥ. Between each one of these 4 points are another 2 saṅkrāntis, measurements, borders. And then how is it related to the sun's, how are these borders related to the sun's movements through these equinoxes and solstices? Bhānor marakara saṅkrānti saṅmāsūtragam. This starts the uttarāyaṇam movement when the sun has entered makara. So the movement towards the northern solstice begins when the sun enters makara, passes the most southern point. And conversely, karkādestu, the movement towards the southern solstice begins when it passes 0 Cancer. And that's from the Sūrya Siddhānta, and the Bhāgavata said, Saesha uddagayana dakshinayana viṣuvad saṅgyabhir māndya-śaighrya-samānābhir gatibhir. The sun moves to the northern solstice, southern solstice, and the equinoctial points, and its movement is described as fixed, cardinal, and dual. And then it says makara dishu rashishu ahoratrani dirgha hrasava samanan vidhate. That's the sun. The days and nights become longer and shorter as the sun moves through these particular signs. And yada mesha and tula are the equinoctial points. Now I have a question, actually. Let's see if anybody else asks this, but okay, I have questions, so I'm not going to answer my own questions. I'll answer your questions. Ved Vyaskov, which is an amazing name that sounds very Vedic. It sounds like Veda Vyas. Vic, can you please explain how to cast charts for places at extreme north? No, I can't do that because that's a little bit off the topic. But it's just regular. It's unregular calculations. Latitude, longitude. You figure out where the sunrise is. And you just use a whole sign house system. That's what I do. Then this next, how do you see this debate developing Niryan versus Sayana Jyotish? I know a lot of people are still very attached. The debate is going nicely, actually. It's nicely that people are not at each other's throats, which is unusual for me coming from the background of Hare Krishna. The ISKCON, people which get at each other's throats anytime they disagree about anything. And which get on my, and the astrologers of that camp get on my throat. But the rest of the world are much more polite and generous. And even if they don't agree with each other, this is the thing. This is Vedic, really. Vedic is Aditi culture. Aditi culture means, and it's Aryaman culture. Aditi and Aryaman culture means love and togetherness. And that's why people cannot comprehend, the British could not comprehend India. So they just named the whole thing Hindu. But there's so many different coexisting things. They're coexisting and co-integrated. So what I like about the Vedic tropical debate right now is that friends are involved in it. You know, you may not agree with me that we should use tropical signs, but we're still friends and we can both talk about astrology together and support each other and help each other. That's what's really nice about this. And it's also going well in that people are gradually starting to see that the tropical zodiac is right. They're gradually starting to see it because it just makes sense. It's undeniable. Look, this is the definition. I just read it. Can you offer me a better definition? Can you show me another definition from the Shastra? I've made this challenge many times since 2012. Somebody show me a definition of the zodiac, this clear, which says that it's based on a star. If there was such a definition, then there wouldn't be debates about ayanamsha. There's endless debates about ayanamsha. Which one is it? Where does it start? Because there's no clear definition. Elizabeth wants me to mention Sedona. Right? I'm not going to probably do this in Sedona because I'm going to be civil in Sedona, and I'm going to acknowledge the fact that there's many different, believe it or not, I can be civil. I'm going to be civil and not probably deal with this, but what I'm going to do in Sedona is talk about nakshatras and the devas of the nakshatras. Sedona is the Vedic Astrology Conference in November. It's going to be fun and nice. I'm coming all the way from Japan just to hang out there. Matishka, our friend from the Southern Hemisphere, she asked if I can explain more about hemispheric associations. So somebody tell me then why you think that the tropical zodiac is hemisphere specific, and then I'll reply to that, because I see no reason to think that it is. Jesus asked if I know Rational Astrology, a book called Rational Astrology from Adolfo Weiss. Jesus, I don't know that book, but let me ask you if you know a book called Beautifully Rational Philosophy of Astrology by this guy called Victor. That's a book. He says that this rational astrology talks about many of the things I do. Parisa, you said that you look at nakshatras from the sidereal perspective and the signs from the tropical. Can you explain why not look at both based on the tropical system? Because first we should understand, what does sidereal mean? It means stars. That's literally what the word means. And tropical, what does it literally mean? Tropical literally means moving, turning around. So that's why you have a thing called the Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, and the equator. Because at that latitude of Tropic of Cancer, that's where the sun tropos, it turns and it starts to head back south. That's the furthest north that the sun gets, is the Tropic of Cancer. And how far is it, you think? 23 degrees. Why? Because that's why the Earth is tilted that much. And then it goes down to the Tropic of Capricorn. So first of all, there are two different things. It's like if you say, it's like mental and physical space occupies the same thing. My mind is here and my body is here in the same space. But the way of measuring my mind is different from the way of measuring my body. There's no centimeters or inches in my mind. But there's centimeters in my body, and they're getting bigger as they get older. So similarly, there's a way for measuring the moon's path, and there's a way for measuring the sun's path. They're not the same. The moon can be observed easily against the stars. The sun cannot. So the moon will be observed to be against stars. So the nakshatras, however, they are not literally stars, but they're abstractions of the moon's path into 13 1/3 degree segments, based on the fact that it has approximately 27 solar sunrises during its lunation period. But within each abstracted section, there's a star and a group of stars based around that, and that makes the nakshatras. So those nakshatras have to be calculated by using ayanamsha. You have to use ayanamsha because you can't tell everything. Every measurement of the sky is based on the sunrise. Where the thing is in the sky is based on what time the sun rose. So we need to know this tropical location of the sun's position in relation to the earth. So then to know where the stars are accurately by math to the degree, then you have to calculate from that tropical point of the sunrise to the star by ayanam. So this is getting too technical for Facebook. But the Rashis then, they're not calculated by stars because you can't see stars at that time. Somebody's saying that the tropical system is hemisphere specific because the fall equinox is not the fall equinox in the southern hemisphere, right? The spring equinox is the fall equinox in the southern hemisphere. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't make a rat's ass of a difference whether it's the fall equinox or the spring equinox. It's the equinox. The equinox is where the sun goes into Mesha and Tula, Aries and Libra. The meaning of the Rashis has nothing to do with weather. It has to do with the planet who rules the Rashi, the element from which it was made, and the way that the sun behaves in it, whether cardinal, fixed, or dual. It doesn't mean just because it's cold in the north in Capricorn, that's a happy coincidence, but that does not make Capricorn what it is. Because what does hot in the north have to do with Cancer? What, you like to go in a swimming pool then? It has nothing to do with weather. Weather is weather. The zodiac signs are the sky, the sun's position in relationship to the earth. Sylvia asked a very good question, really. Sylvia says, do you think that somehow we get so attached to the Rashi placement? She's saying, like, maybe people get too attached to their sidereal chart, they don't want to switch. That's also true. And then you get used to thinking of yourself through certain lenses, and it's very hard to switch. But when you get a good reading done by tropical system, you see it's clear. Like every once in a while, more often than I would like, during the beginning of a reading with the person says, what? When I do a reading with the person says, what? I'm not a Scorpio ascendant. I'm a Libra ascendant. And then I have to say, oh, didn't you check that box on the form where you signed up for this reading that says you understand I do tropical science? And they say, yeah, but I didn't think it would make my chart different. And then they're very hesitant at first. But then after a while, they're like, aha, yeah, I see how this, I like this system. Can I study astrology with you? So people do get attached to their way of looking at themselves, which they've been using sidereal astrology to help them with. But if you can offer a better alternative, if you just offer an alternative, then nobody really wants to switch. It's a pain in the neck. But if you offer them a better alternative, they'll switch. Then it's really hard for people to switch into things which are like, oh no, I don't want to be a Capricorn. I want to be a Sagittarius. Jasmine is asking which one I prefer. Well, as I'm saying, tropical is my preference because I consider myself a aspirant to the Vedic path. So I like to follow things that are explained by Vedic authorities. So I follow the definition given in the Bhāgavata Purāṇa and the various Puranas and the Siddhānta. So I practice tropical astrology because of that theory, and also because it just makes things so much easier. The state of astrology these days boggles my mind. How it is like spider webs mixed with yarn in a pigsty. There's just so many different crisscrossing theories, and then this theory contradicts that theory, and this contradicts that. This is how you should do an interpretation of that. If you are willing to try tropical astrology, and especially if you're willing to try my system of how to do it, it is a simple system with a couple of basic rules, and you just get the clear symbolic meanings of everything, and you just go. You can interpret. You don't have to know a billion different theories. That's why I like tropical astrology better, because it works easier with a simpler system. That's science. Science says if you can explain something using 55 steps of logic, or you can explain the same thing using 5 steps of logic, the explanation which uses 5 steps of logic is better. So that's why I prefer minimalistic things. Let's see what else we've got. Are the rulers of our mind the nakshatra devatas versus our will, which is ruled by the zodiac lords? Nobody rules your mind except you. And tatkritam chabhipadyate. Nobody rules your mind except you and the people to whom you give it. So it's only you. Nobody rules you, but you have momentum by the things that you've done already. And the things that we've done, the decisions that we've already made in the past create momentum for us. When you have momentum in going this direction, and then all of a sudden you decide you want to go that direction, then it feels like fate. You can't do that. But nobody's responsible for that except you. The rulers of the nakshatras, the devas that rule the nakshatras, are essential for understanding the symbolic meaning of the nakshatras. And the rulers and elements and modes of the signs are what's essential for understanding the symbolic content of the signs. Thomas Fallon asked me if I see any correlation between the Milky Way and the nakshatras or signs. Yes, I'm actually investigating this. I'm investigating this because with Togi Adityaji. I've tried to get him involved in my investigation. Because the Bhagavatam and various sources describe a Shishumar, which is like a makara or a dolphin constellation, which links the pole star to these other stars, which I'm not aware of. That's why I need an astronomer like Togiji to help me with. So the tail comes down and it swirls around the sky through these various star systems, and then this dolphin then takes a head first dive down. And when it takes the head first dive down, that's the Milky Way. It's the Milky Way is its back diving down, and it cuts the nakshatra wheel in half at that area of Mula. So these are the Milky Way is part of that area of the nakshatra, and it comes across to the other side. But all the stuff about galactic centers and Milky Way stuff, that's modern stuff, in my opinion, and I'm just happy with the Yogatars, the main stars that they describe in the Siddhānta, and then the Devas. I don't need all this others. Interesting. It's interesting. Sure, it's interesting, but I don't make it a core part of my astrological system that there's a black hole in such and such place, or there's a nebula over here. Raphael wants to know if there's a link where you can calculate my natal chart with your system. Well, if you're not averse to spending money on it, you can go to my site and get a reading. My site is victakara.com. Or if you want to do it for free, you can do vaultofheavens.com. Vault of Heavens. It's not exactly the system that I use, but it's pretty darn close. Or you can just do any old tropical calculator. And there's billions of them because the Western astrology does the same thing. But just realize that's only describing your Rashi system, not describing your nakshatra system. He's asking me, what about Makar Saṅkrānti? When's the real date of Makara Saṅkrānti? See, this also is an important point. People were trying to reform this a long time ago in India. The way that the Indian history went was there was many, many different ayanamshas. So the calendar of India wasn't set, and people in different regions had different ideas about when to celebrate different holidays. So the Indian government commissioned Lahiri to determine the correct ayanamsha, and then they accepted Lahiri's ayanamsha. And then they made that the ayanamsha for the entire calendar for India. But then shortly thereafter, some people said this is ridiculous because the Makar Saṅkrānti is uttarāyaṇa. It's supposed to be the winter solstice. It's supposed to be for us in India, the winter solstice, the southern solstice. So, you can't do the celebration that's meant for the winter solstice in January, at the end of January. You have to do it at the right time. But the Indian government didn't really care about the religious significance of the ceremonies. They just wanted to have everybody on the same time, so they didn't accept it. But for a very long time, Ernest Willem was not the first one to say. He was the first one that I encountered who said that the Rashis are tropical. But there's been many scholars in India since the adoption of a Sidereal Zodiac as the official definition of the Zodiac who have protested. So actually, if you really want to practice, celebrate, observe Makar Saṅkrānti and the Uttarāyaṇa, you have to observe it on the December 21st, on the day when the sun stops moving south and the nights stop getting longer. Now that is hemisphere specific. If you're in the day that you should observe a particular religious ceremony, that's hemisphere specific. For the people in the southern hemisphere, they would observe Makar Saṅkrānti. The significance of Makar Saṅkrānti would happen on Saṅkrānti, on June 21st. That's different for the southern hemisphere. But the fundamentals of what the zodiac signs represent, the symbology of them and how it works in a kundali, a janma kundali, your birth chart, it's not relevant whether you're in the northern or southern hemisphere. No, this is a nice question. Why do the signs have the same names as the constellations? No, the question is backwards. Why do the constellations have the same name as the signs? And that's because it's for convenience. Because it's very difficult to measure the signs and to see them. That's one of the early questions in this video was, can you see these things? So since you can't see these signs, it's handy to say, you see those stars over there? That's where that area is right now. And so these constellations were named at around 2,000 years ago when these parts of the Zodiac were coinciding with those areas of the stars. But you know that it didn't come from the stars and then get named as the signs. Because if the Zodiac are actually the stars, then Pisces has to be huge. Aries has to be tiny. Virgo has to be gigantic. What is Aries? Aries is like this big. And Pisces is like... But that's not what we have. We have 12 equal sign divisions, equal size divisions. And then you have, and why 12? Why not have 13 or 53? Because you also got some bit of another constellation in there, according to the Greeks and Mesopotamians or whoever named it. So those signs, the reason why the stars are named after signs is as a reference to where the signs were when they were named. But the real constellations are called Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika. Those are the real constellations. Mesh, Adi. From Mesh onward, those are not constellations, those are Rashis. Okay, I think we will end it pretty soon. So let's see. Somebody wants to know, Elizabeth wants to know how I came to be immersed in Vedic astrology. My wife said, you become a Vedic astrologer, and I'm a humble servant of my wife, who is a great sadhu and wonderful person. So whatever she says, I'll do. And it just made sense also. Both of us knew that it was actually just the super soul, Paramatma, speaking through her. She said you should become an astrologer. And her reason was I already had all the background, and etc. So because I was already involved in India, in Vedic life, then I got interested in Vedic astrology. All right, I hope you guys liked that. This was my first one. My first Facebook Live event. I hope it wasn't too all over the place. And I hope to do it again. If you liked it, let me know, and we'll do it again sometime. Some different topic. You could even let me know like what kind of topics you want to see me do next time. I don't want to always harp on the same topic, but I just thought this one needed some direct questions and answers. And I'm surprised nobody asked me any challenging questions. Maybe I need to do it again and really invite the challengers. So thank you so much for participating. Haribol, thank you.